famous Sephardi rabbis over here. But I want to speak a bit about Yitzhak Shemaiah Elishar. He happens to be a famous head of the Sephardic community in Jerusalem, especially at a pivotal time. He passed away on the 9th of July in 1933. Now, 15th of Tammuz would mark his Hilula. It's obviously not the date at the moment. Here we're in the middle of Sivan. But since I spoke about a few other great rabbis from the famous Elisha rabbinic dynasty, I thought I would speak about Yitzhak Shemaiah Elishar. He was a man of the congregation of Jerusalem, and an outstanding one, let's just say. He was part of the Mou'tzat העיר. He was part of the committee, Sephardi committee in Jerusalem, and was a Nasi, let's say a president or prince of the Kihilat Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem congregation in of itself. Let's explore a few of the highlights of the famous person's life over here. He was born in Jerusalem, and what's interesting about him, why I'm actually specifically concentrating on him on the video, he was, I believe, the son of Rabbi Chaim Moshe Elishar, another great rabbi who happened to be a Rishon LeZion, a chief rabbi of Israel, one of the chief rabbis of Jerusalem of his time. So we've spoken about nearly covered this encompassment of series of pretty much all the chief rabbis already. So he was a grandson of Rabbi Yaakov Shaul Elisha, who also was a chief rabbi, I believe, between the years 1893 to 1906, respectively. So he was very, very much huge amounts of pedigree and let's say great heritage. I believe his mother's or grandmother's name, I'm not too sure. There was a connection where I think maybe his grandfather was Rabbi Raphael Meir Panizal, another former Rishon LeZion. He passed away in the 1893. He would be taken over by his grandfather, Rabbi Elisha, respectively, which is interesting enough. Now, when he was young, he would learn in the old city of Jerusalem, in the Talmud Torah over there. At that point in time, there were various different Talmud Torahs, which we've spoken about on various occasions before. I think it was under the auspices of Rabbi Shlomo Bachar, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been connected to the Lamal Beit Sefer school itself. Come with the age of 11 years old, he would move on to the school called Talmud Torah, called Doresh Tzion, a place we've spoken about on this series not so long ago. We actually spent an entire video within regards to that specific school. He would learn under the auspices of Rab Bachor Sholem, I believe, which is interesting enough. And there was many other great rabbis there. Rabbi Yehuda Panizel, rabbi we've spoken about before, and Rabbi Yoshua HaKohen Chako, another great rabbi. He would also learn under another famous person, not a rabbi, but Chaim Kelmi, I believe, was a famous man of the congregation, also once again concentrated in the Sephardic community. He would learn French under him. He was a French teacher over there and was a famous man of his time. And I think there was, very, very interesting enough. There was another person of the name Ibrahim Safiti, if I'm not mistaken, at this stage in time. He would continue to learn Talmud under the auspices of Rab Menachem Bachari Yitzhak, I think for 3 years. And then while he was still young, he would start writing various different shuvot, answers to different questions on halacha, I think connected to his grandfather, Rabbi Yaakov Shaul Elisha, which would be printed in a book. Remember, he was a Rishon LeZion, one of the most famous and a long-standing Rishon LeZion for about 13 years, if I'm not mistaken, until the year 1906. Now, and he had, as we can see, a whole model of great rabbis behind him. After he completed these studies, he would go on to get married. Now, he got married to the daughter of another famous man from the Jerusalem community, Yosef Navon. Now, we're talking about the Navon family. I'm not sure if he directly was connected to the rabbinic family of Navon, but very interesting enough. And he would start working in trade at that stage in time. He would also be learning proper Torah, huge amounts of Kavua Torah, fixed Torah, under Rabbi Nachman Engel, another rabbi we've spoken about, and Rabbi Nisim Yehuda Danon, another great rabbi. Rabbi Danon would also go on to become a Rishon LeZion and Chacham Bashi towards the end of the Ottoman time period, respectively. So you can see he was educated and was close to some of the great rabbis during the very, very latter period of the Ottoman Empire. Now, it's actually interesting. There was a connection with Rabbi Hanania Gabriel, another great rabbi who was a head of Jewish court and part of the president of the Moua'tzat of both Egypt, respectively, and had that role in Jerusalem. He'd have a connection also with him. And I think there was a yeshiva, if I'm not mistaken, called the Jini Yeshiva, if I'm not mistaken, a special one I think that was very much connected to the Rabbi Yaakov Meir, rabbi we've spoken about, who also was a chief rabbi of Rishon. So you can see the pedigree he's come on. He was among the top rabbis of Jerusalem. He would go on to become a business partner with another famous person, if I'm not mistaken, someone named Ben Zion Korono. And I believe his, I think that more things that we can add within regards to the famous personality. He would actually work with his brother, Yosef Shaul Elishar, I think it's 1927, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Rav Yosef Shaul Elishar was a president of the Sephardic community. Also, he was one of the founders of Zichron Moshe neighborhood in Jerusalem, and really did a lot with regards to Zionistic activity. And he was a rabbi also himself, so he had great brothers. Also, we have to point out there was the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, and he would go on to serve over there as a member of the Jerusalem Chamber of Commerce, which I think was actually founded by the Turkish government at that stage in time. And he was, during the time period, let's just say, of the war years itself, he would serve as a member of the Economic Council over there, which is interesting enough. I think under Hossein El Hosseini, I'm not too sure much about him. He was, I think, the head of the municipality, if I'm not mistaken, and had a connection with the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire at that stage in time, that specific era. So he was considered among the other, let's just say, communities on a very high esteem. He would handle purchase of wheat, it's reported over, and the supply of bread to residents in Jerusalem. He would serve as a representative of a delegation to Jordan, it was reported over, which is also important. And he would actually purchase wheat also over there. I think, come with the year 1916, he was a member of the Treasury of the Government and the Interdenominational Committee for Distribution of Aid from the United States of America, respectively, until the year 1919. Now, I believe shortly afterwards, the land of Israel would be conquered by the British, it would be, and this was, I believe, this was after 1919, if I'm mistaken, and he was elected to serve as a member of the Jerusalem municipality and as a representative of the Jewish people alongside Yitzhak Shemaiah, who was also a merchant in Jerusalem, especially, and the representative, he himself, of the Ashkenazic Jewish community in Jerusalem. And he would go later on, he would be vice president of the municipality, and come 1920, he would leave that specific position. And he was one of the founders and directors of Jerusalem Jewish City Committee, and would have various other positions. I think he had a connection with Zev Jabotinsky also, of, let's just say, he was one of the founders of the World Federation of Sephardic Jews. He would serve as the vice president also, which we have to point out, of the community of the World Union of Sephardic Communities, the World Federation, and he was a member of the Hebra Kadisha and the Sephardic Committee in Jerusalem. He represented the Sephardic community in the National Committee also, a delegate of the First and Second Assemblies, respectively, in the Land of Israel organization. He served as a member of the B'nai Brit Chamber, a member of the board of the Kufat Amma Bank, if I'm not mistaken. He was a member of the council, I think, in 1920, and was a board on the Mizrahi Bank. So you can see he had many different positions at that point in time, especially connected to the British government. Now, I think there was a Jerusalem municipal elections in 1927, and he would go on to be re-elected to Jerusalem municipality. He would eventually resign in the year 1930, along with other Jewish people at that stage in time. I think they wanted the deputy mayor, Chaim Solomon, to be the acting mayor at that point in time, if I'm not mistaken. And he would, I think, after events, I think there was obviously the famous events in 1919, the pogrom, the murder by Arabs at that stage in time, which we've spoken about on various occasions before. He would work to help the victims to rehabilitate themselves, especially in their businesses, and to become residents of especially the Old City in Jerusalem. He was one of the founders also of the Yeshurun synagogue, which happened to be actually an Ashkenazic synagogue in Jerusalem, I think, which was founded respectively in the 1920s. He was a member of the government committee to investigate problems, let's just say, various other specific issues. Now, when he passed away, I believe, on July the 9th in the year 1933, his funeral will take place in Jerusalem, was attended by many thousands of people, and to go on to be buried in Har HaZeitim, in the Mount of Olives burial plot. And it's actually interesting what is actually written on something where they talk about him and his connections to Rabbi Chaim Moshe Elisha and the great people of Jerusalem, I think on his kever, if I'm not mistaken. He would have other famous sons, let's just say, including Eliyahu Elisha, who was a famous public figure and businessman, and he would also be a president of the Sephardic committee in Jerusalem and a deputy mayor of Jerusalem, and his son would go on to become a member of the Knesset. Also Menashe Elisha, another famous person, a famous businessman in Jerusalem, a public figure, let's just say. He was a president of the Jerusalem Chamber of Commerce for many, many years, I think specifically from the year 1951. Now, I think in the city of Jerusalem, in Jaffa Street, there's actually a street in that vicinity that is actually named after him, interestingly enough. So that's also very, very much interesting, which I recommend everyone to look about. It's good to explore the history from the early 1900s, which I very much recommend everyone to look back at. Without a doubt, he was a famous rabbi of his time. He did a lot, let's say, within regards to Zionism and the Medinat Israel. There's articles about him on various places, let's just say, itself, which I recommend everyone to actually look into. Actually, his period during the Dorosh Sion synagogue, his connections to the chief rabbis of Israel, and connections to the Turkish government, the Jerusalem municipality, which he was, and the various governors of Jerusalem, let's just say. He had connections with Zev Jabotinsky and other people, and there's so much more that we can actually see within regards to that time period. It was the 15th of Tammuz in the year 1933 when he passed away. His wife's name, I think, was I think his wife's name was Mazal, if I'm not mistaken, but I have to double check on that. Also, or maybe that was his daughter's name, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was actually his daughter's name was Mazal. She was the wife of Shimon Kohen, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, we said that Eliyahu was his son. Also, Menashe Chai. Also, I think Miriam was one of his daughters. She was wife of Moshe El Chassid, if I'm not mistaken, who was a prominent person in Buenos Aires. He'd have other descendants, Cheskia, Yehuda, who would be in the United States of America, Victoria. Who was a wife of Dr. Shimon Batash, if I'm not mistaken, the head, let's just say, the Beit Cholim of the, let's just say, the Mamshelet in Yarakon in Tel Aviv, respectively. And so various different descendants he would also have, which is very interesting to say. Now, friends, we're a community here. We're learning about famous rabbis of yesteryear. If you did descend from any of the rabbis we're speaking about, please send me an email. I would love to hear more. If you feel anyone's interested in watching any of these videos, please share these videos with people. Friends, we're nearly on staggering 7,000 members on this channel. We're growing really, really quickly. We're a community here. Please subscribe to the channel now. We want to get to the 7,000 amount by the Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. Let's see if we can get to that fantastic achievement. We're going to have a fantastic night from Israel, Central Israel, and just good things. And please watch over. We covered more than a staggering 1,000 great rabbis of yesteryear from the Sephardic and North African countries also. So wishing you all a good night. Take care and be well, everyone. Thank you.